was in a real brain block while creating this video because of how vital and essential this show is to me. Then I decided to simply vomit everything that I want to say and the problem is solved. Therefore, it is going to be a lengthy video. If you have been following this channel, you will notice that I've been building up this episode in a subtle way. My season 1 finale of the Sea Prince and the Fire Child review, I said when my brain started to form memories, one of the first things in my life is kaiju movies and TV shows, and I included a picture of i-zenborg. I should have said tokusatsu shows, not just kaiju, but oh well. I showed the DVD on my Megazone 2-3 review, and in the Luna Varga review, I said that my mind goes to i-zenborg first whenever I see a giant monster. Anyway, Dinosaur War Izenborg is the most important piece of entertainment in my life, and I'm not even exaggerating. I can safely say that it is my first memory. It exposed me to anime, tokusatsu, storytelling, production design, you name it, and I have watched it over 100 times easily. It is a cultural treasure in my country which to this day people are in love with it, including kids who are born in the 2000s and the 2010s. That's the significance of i-zenborg in my country. So, I've been watching it on VHS for decades, and when I got this Italian DVD, I think 3 years ago, that's when I heard the original Japanese voices for the first time. And I teared up. I couldn't help myself. Watching it in a much better picture quality after I used to death 10 VHS tapes is quite a beautiful thing to me. However, I still watch my VHS tapes as we never got a release of our dub after the VHS releases, and because I have a personal connection with the series. What am I talking about? Well, on my Dragon Quest The Adventure of Dai manga review, I mentioned that my uncle was in the anime industry in my country as a voice actor and worked on many anime dubbed in my native language during the early 80s till the mid 90s. He worked on Future Boy Conan, Dr. Slump, Spaceship Sagittarius, Princess Knight, and 2 World Masterpiece Theater anime, The Swiss Family Robinson and The Adventure of Tom Sawyer, and many more. So the first time I got familiar with his work is with i-zenborg, and he didn't voice one particular character. He was in multiple roles, like the unknown people running away from the monsters, some characters who only appeared in one episode. So I continually heard his voice while watching the series, and I remember this so vividly. I was 6 years old in 1988, and I listened to his voice during episode 25 because he was the driver that had the ape that became a giant monster, and my uncle was sitting next to me, and I just looked at him suspiciously. I looked back at the screen, and when I looked at him again, he said the same line that was just used in the episode. Saying I was mind blown is an understatement. I really felt like he is a celebrity. Heck, any 6-year-old would be excited to know that a family member is on TV in any form. A cherished moment that I will never forget as long as I am alive. As you can tell, i-zenborg means so much to me in every level possible. And now, let's go deep into every aspect of it. So Dinosaur War Izenborg is a tokusatsu anime series hybrid released in 1977 by the legendary Tsuburaya Productions and ran for 39 episodes. It is a unique series as it mixes traditional animation used for the human characters and live action setting with everything else from cities, planes, and monsters, kaiju tokusatsu style and all of its explosive fun glory. This show is part of the Dinosaur trilogy, and it is the second in the series. Each is a standalone title. The idea came to be when the creators were trying to incorporate the concept of tokusatsu and anime. Thus, they made a short film, and I think it was called Planet of the Giant Monsters, and it is the first project of putting the two mediums together. It was shot in one room somewhere in the Tsuburaya offices. Then they started to experiment more with the idea, and eventually, Dinosaur Expedition Born Free was made in 1976, the first in the Dinosaur trilogy. It was family friendly that entices kids to know more about dinosaurs, so it wasn't the typical tokusatsu show as it did not focus on the battle of good versus evil. It is all about saving dinosaurs and putting them in safe environments. Unsurprisingly, it was very popular with kids, and for good reasons, as the message of the story is all about preserving the environment and whatnot. Then production started on i-zenborg, and they took the base of Born Free's ideas and made them better in every way. More significant production, numerous monsters and dinosaurs, and more in-depth storytelling of good versus evil. It wasn't targeted exclusively towards kids anymore. They used similar props to the vehicles of the main characters of Born Free and gave them more edgy and army-like designs. And the outcome is a series that was ahead of its time, and the production team is 8 young talent with energy that translated perfectly into the episodes, as the passion and love are undeniable when watching the series. The team had ideas of using dinosaurs in animation form at first, but the plan got scrapped, and they went to the actual rubber suit designs that are rich with detail and heaviness. So basically, they went the extra mile, the hard way, which is always the proper way. I think you can see some of the cancelled animation design ideas in episode 21, where Gotas is in a form of animation and the excuse is that he shrinks himself to human size. And yeah, it did not look good. But all of that wasn't enough. The team didn't only want to do a grand showcase of amazing effects, they wanted a deep story. So the animation side of things, with the help of Studio Dean, concentrated on the drama and the relationships of the characters. So they didn't just combine anime and tokusatsu mediums regarding aesthetics only, they used what made both special and unique. However, it wasn't a spectacular success in Japan, but wasn't a failure either, and the toy line of it was the smashing success. The story starts with dinosaurs returning back to Earth. They emerge on the ground and are being led by Ololo, who takes orders from his High Master with the goal of taking over planet Earth. You see, the dinosaurs are actually good, but when they are controlled and sometimes tortured, they will have red eyes and becomes evil and follow orders. And this goes to any animal, not just dinosaurs, by the way. Then we have the headquarters of our heroes, led by Professor Tori and his D-Sentai team that stops Ololo's reign of terror. The D-Sentai consists of 4 individuals, the brother and sister duo Zen and Ai, and their sidekicks Goro and Epei. They ride the i-zenborg, a tank-like super weapon that gets divided into 2 pieces. i-zenborg is a ground-based tank and can transform into a plane with a drill that is called i-zenborg Go. Ai becomes the computer of it and Zen is the pilot. You see, Zen and Ai are half robots because of an accident that happened when they were testing the i-zenborg. The other half of i-zenborg becomes i-zen2, which is a helicopter-shaped tank piloted by Epei and Goro. The story has the classic episodic structure, which I am a huge fan of, with a Monster of the Week formula and standalone scenarios that help develop the characters and getting to know more about their backstories. The show literally starts small with evil dogs. The first 10 episodes are basic, as the monsters generally are simple and they were good for establishing the characters, their abilities, and getting familiar with the world. As far as episodic shows, i-zenborg is one of the best. Almost all the episodes have something good in them, whether it is an awesome dinosaur, emotional ones that focus on one of the characters, some that don't take itself seriously, finding love, family drama, there is everything. And when my love for this world reached a high point, this story ends and left me wanting more, with an angry feeling about the ending, which I'll get into later in the video. One of the things I love the most about the episodic storytelling in anime or tokusatsu shows is the build up to the main villains. You see them in every episode sending their monsters, and when the plot reaches the climax of said villain, it always feels like a special event is going to happen because the build up is in every episode. All of that is executed with i-zenborg perfectly, and the story picks up in episode 19 as the stakes become higher, with more menacing villains and monsters. The plot is also different in the approach of i-zenborg, as the giant hero doesn't appear from episode 1. It happens in the middle of the story in episode 20. And oh boy, that episode had me screaming with joy because I was waiting for i-zenborg to show up, as he did appear in the opening. It also helped that Zen and I were in a very low point in the story, so having i-zenborg to appear was cathartic. Oh man, trying not to spoil anything is really hard. What the team did is patience. They did not show their full cards in the beginning. The real form of our heroes, the main villains, they all appeared later with a payoff that is a home run for me. The main character Zen. He's the ultimate soldier and doesn't fool around and the most focused out of the group. He's not a mindless soldier, however, and can be a jerk sometimes, especially towards his sister Ai. But his intentions are good because he is overly protective of her and filled with tough love. It's just that he has a crappy way of showing it sometimes. He eventually learns and develops as a soldier and a better brother. Ai, the other main character, Zen's little sister. She is like the mother of the team and the most human out of all the characters, although her emotions can get the best of her as she is very naive. And again, like Zen, she learns from those mistakes while still retains that loving personality. Something I found fascinating is that when Zen and Ai became cyborgs, each of half of their bodies were replaced with robotic parts. Zen is a robot on the right side while Ai is on the left side. Then my brother pointed out that she has an artificial heart while being the most human out of all the characters. And I never thought of that. That's how much love Ai has for the world, and that made me love her even more. Tori, the professor who made the team possible and the one who saved Zen and Ai by making them cyborgs. He is the father figure of the characters, but unfortunately, he is not explored much except for episode 27, where it focused on his relationship with his son. A very emotional episode, and it was enough for me to care about him. Goro the zoologist and Epe the lovable comrade. These two side characters are wonderful as they made the team feel complete as they are normal, ordinary people, making them braver than everybody in the story. Especially Goro. He's a charming character and his love for animals is unlimited, and it shines on episode 29 where he raises a baby dinosaur. The first villain of the story, Ololo. I love him. He is so evil, slimy, and used to piss me off. I loved his evil laugh in our country's dub. It was so over the top and way better than the Japanese version in my opinion. I want to talk more about him, but I'll say more when I get to the spoilers. The main antagonist of the story, the alien from the star of Gazaria, Gotis. I remember when Ololo used to take orders from him, we only saw his eyes that weren't actually his eyes because he looks different. Anyway, I always wondered how evil he is when he eventually appears, and when he did, it met my expectations. His memorable design added to the darkness he holds, and when I thought I saw the ultimate evil character in the show, comes Zubina, the partner of Gotis who specializes in taming and training the dinosaurs, and she is ruthless. She harbors the characteristics of the evil invaders as she lacks empathy to the human characters. But at the same time, she gets to be funny. Zobina is anything but a one-dimensional character. Her range of emotions is extensive, and I can safely say she is my favorite character in the story. I love it every time she shows up. Most of my favorite episodes are the ones that are about her, and again, I'll talk about them in the spoilers. So after all the production background I talked about, how is the result? When it comes to the Tokusatsu aspect of it, timeless for me. It is flawless when it comes to engagement and the details. Let's start with the dinosaurs. We get the typical real-life dinosaur designs, and we have some unique ones that are full of life, from scary to cool and funny. They are brilliantly done and can easily see that the team is having the time of their life creating all of this. It is one of those times where I forget it is a person underneath as the acting and the movements are well put together to make it believable. And it is mainly the heaviness I mentioned before. You feel like these are dangerous giant monsters. The set design is also top notch. The cities are well put together, and when everything explodes into oblivion with the use of pyro and practical effects is orgasmic. The set design of the villain's headquarters in particular is phenomenal, with the color red dominating the theme of it. The little use of stop motion animation is beautiful yet disappointing, as I wish there is more of it. The scenery is also great as it adds to the realism with stunning imagery. And that's where i-zenborg comes to place. By far, he is my favorite Tokusatsu hero, better than my other favorites like Ultraman, Mirrorman, Gridman, you name it. I am biased here, but I don't care. To me, he is the standard when it comes to this genre. And yes, his design is not complicated or profound, but I love the simplicity of it. It is always a joy to watch i-zenborg forms and be the badass that we love and adore. It never gets old. The same thing goes to the two main villains, Gottes and Zubina, one of the best villain designs in this genre. Because of them, whenever I see a fly, they immediately come to mind. They are memorable as the show itself. Fun fact, the actor who performed all the amazing moves for i-zenborg is Tatsumi Nikamoto, who played Ultraman Leo. What about the animation part? It is not the type that will blow anyone away, I can safely say that, but it did its job, and that is blending with the live action, and the character designs are simple, but it gave personality to every character. Finally, we have the soundtrack, and let me tell you, the iconic beginning of the opening song is forever ingrained into my head. Whenever it used to start on TV, our entire house rushed to the TV as if it's a call up that we are going to witness explosions and giant awesome monsters. That also to be said about the soundtrack. Every track fits the scenes, whether it is dramatic, energetic, scary, or sad. I know I'm saying this a lot, but the soundtrack is memorable. It absolutely is. And the sound design of the monsters and the tiny details of things getting destroyed is exhilarating to watch, and it complements the soundtrack in every way. Energetic. That's how I sum up the soundtrack. I'm going to do something different since I want to cover everything that I can. This spoiler section will be divided into 3 parts: my top 5 favorite episodes, top 5 favorite monsters, and talking about the ending. Doing those 2 top 5s, by the way, was harder than I expected, as I loved almost every episode and monsters, and I kept on changing my mind every time I finished one, and I will probably change my thoughts on it after this video. That's the struggles of making a list of something you love. So, let's start with my top 5 favorite episodes. Number 5, episode 19, The Death of Ololo. This episode we have Gottes becoming fed up of Ololo's failures and gives him one last chance to redemption by fighting the D-Sentai himself. This episode is terrific. Not only it is the debut of Gottes, but it showed the pain the dinosaurs goes to, as there is this dinosaur that escaped the headquarters of the villains. It was wounded, and before our heroes tried to cure it, Ololo appears in front of them, and I was as afraid of him as that poor dinosaur. But then that slimy bastard pretends to be wounded as well, and I, being the naive person that she is, goes to Ololo. And again, I was like that poor dinosaur, screaming and hoping she stays away. But Ololo attacks and badly wounds I and kills the good dinosaur. Then he says the amazing line in our dub: "You will see who I am Ololo, and your end will be in my hands." Just amazing. Then he fights i-zenborg and almost kills them, and his ego and pride led to his demise because he underestimated the unlimited potential of humans not wanting to give up. I also love the scene when Goro punches Zen because he thought he is the only one who cares about Ai, and Goro, being the oldest, gives a lesson of wisdom to Zen, which humbled him by the end. Emotional and essential episode because it is the transition of Gottes being the main antagonist, and it builds up to the i-zenborg's transformation in the following episode. Which comes to my number 4, episode 20, the debut of i-zenborg. The follow-up to my number 5 is the follow-up episode. I mentioned it before that the episode i-zenborg debuts is the lowest point Ai and Zen are in the story. Ai is undergoing surgery, and Zen is depressed and worried about the whole thing. Then Gottes sends a dinosaur, and it's a classic case of wrong timing. None of the D-Sentai is ready, and all the stakes are against them. But they go anyway with their usual optimism. So what happens? They get destroyed. Then something weird happens. Ai is feeling the pain of Zen and rushes to rescue him, as she becomes super strong and fast. Professor Tori is dumbfounded on what the hell is going on, so they form i-zenborg and they get beating up again. But then the image of their father appears in Ai's mind, and she tells Zen to come to her, and when he did, they form i-zenborg. And I was like, yes, the build-up after all these episodes are worth it. I was shocked and surprised, like i-zenborg. Exciting episode, and that's when the series got levitated to a new height in me. Number 3, episode 31, the first appearance of Zobina. From now till number 1, it's all about Zobina related episodes. She is my favorite character, I can't help it. Talk about a grand entrance. This episode established that she is crazy, ruthless, reckless, and psychotic. She appeared to aid Gotes to train a dinosaur he's having troubles with, and she brutalizes it to a disturbing level. Even Gotes is surprised. Then later in the episode, she kidnaps Ai and poisons her. She has the mind of a serial killer, and this episode made the perfect first impression. Just as Gotes elevated the threat for the main characters, she did the same thing when she was introduced in this episode. Number 2, episode 38, Zobina's death. This is the beginning of the final arc. The stakes are higher than ever as Gotes and Zobina invade the cities themselves along with 2 dinosaurs. There are so many battles in this episode, constant non-stop action, and one of the biggest shocks in the series happens when i-zenborg stabs Zobina and kills her. That got me off guard. I did not expect she dies in this episode, and it wasn't even the end of the episode. It happened around the 12-minute mark. That scene is perfect as she burns to ashes as i-zenborg looks at her. Dark skies and gloomy music. The way that scene is put together made me afraid of what would the wrath of Gotes would be, and she left as she came, putting the fear into the viewer. But Zobina put a smile on my face with my number 1 favorite episode, and that is episode 32, Zobina Goes Shopping. You heard that right. The episode is different from all the episodes in this series. It's centered on comedy, and Gotes and Zobina were so out of character, and it was all about them. They took most of the screen time in this episode, which never happens, by the way. So what is the story of this epic episode? It starts with Gotes wanting a dinosaur with a massive stomach so that he stuff it with bombs. Yeah, and Zobina doesn't want to be part of it because she is focused on trying out new clothes. What? She was the scary maniac in the previous episode. Zobina was trying new clothes because she saw the women of our planet, and what do they do when they go shopping? So she loved it and wanted to be like them. And it's hilarious as the heroes are trying to figure out what is her plan when she went to the city. She doesn't have any. I swear, this episode is so bizarre. She has this weird device that prints the clothes she paints. Why do they have this in their dinosaur headquarters? It doesn't matter. This episode has no rules. Then Gotes finds the dinosaur he wants, but it's this big lazy dinosaur doofus that is worthless, and they go through the trouble of trying to train it, and it's a slapstick comedy at its finest. Zobina singing while the dinosaur creepily stares at her is simply timeless. Gotes feeding the dinosaur the bombs as it gets bigger and bigger. It all doesn't make sense. I don't know what happened when the studio made this episode, but whatever they were smoking, I'm glad they did. There is no reason for this episode to exist, but it gave me all the reasons to laugh, and that is why it's my favorite episode. Now for my top 5 favorite monsters. Number 5, the Storm Manipulator Dinosaur in episode 38. Sadly, that dinosaur did not appear a lot, and its ability to control the weather caused the main characters a lot of headache, but it appeared in the final arc as it supports Gotes and Zobina, so the spotlight wasn't on that dinosaur, and I wish it had its own episode. I love the hairy design, and yes, it looks similar to the ice dinosaur, but this one looks better in my opinion. Number 4, the bird dinosaur in episode 34. One of the more unique looking monsters, as it is a giant bird essentially. It looks clean and sharp, and the ability to use winds as a weapon fits it perfectly. Number 3, the fake i-zenborg in episode 33. One of the 2 non-dinosaurs on the list. I love this episode because it is one of the more different ones in the series. Gottes, being all frustrated that he can't win against i-zenborg, plays a bunch of greatest hits of his dinosaurs being killed, and then he takes the best abilities out of all of them with the analysis of i-zenborg's abilities. Then he Frankensteins a giant robot that looks very cool, I don't care what you tell me, and gives it the i-zenborg cover, and we have a fake i-zenborg. An excellent fight and a breath of fresh air because of how different the monster was in this episode. Number 2, the cobra looking dinosaur in episode 17. Now this dinosaur and his powers gave me nightmares when I was a kid. First of all, look how scary this dinosaur is. Even the way he first showed up is creepy. He shoots this mysterious black ooze that moves to his destination and is toxic and kills everything that touches. That black liquid freaked me out back then. Scenes where people melt and dissolve because of it was so scary. I used to imagine that liquid coming to my bedroom while I'm sleeping. The way it crawled so disgustingly is a beautiful sight for me now. So a monster that made me scared shitless when I was a kid deserved to be on my top 5 list. Number 1, the Firefly robot in episode 26. The most different and unique monster in the series. This is where Gottes made an army of robot fireflies that were terrorizing our heroes, and eventually they all formed to create this giant firefly robot. I love the design of it even though my friends see it as stupid, and I loved it as it does look menacing. It formed out of nowhere and it is so powerful that even i-zenborg couldn't defeat it in a fair fight. Apparently, its weakness is the sun, so when the sunrise happened during the fight, that's when it became weaker, and i-zenborg took advantage of that. And this is why it is my favorite monster. It's unique and was never really defeated. Well, here is the only negative with i-zenborg. Yes, there is something I hate, and it is the ending, or specifically the final arc and the introduction of the asshole Musashi. Oh god, I hate this character and what he did to the story. This fellow appeared in the last 2 episodes out of nowhere saying he's a galactic patrol guy who destroys evil in the galaxy, and he knows the secret hideout of Gottes and somehow knows his weakness. It felt like the team just wanted to end the story, so they shoehorned him in to make the process faster. So by the end, he sacrificed himself when he covered Gottes' necklace, which is the source of his godlike powers, and i-zenborg kills Gottes along with Musashi. All of the characters cry over his death as if they knew him for so long. They put so much emphasis on his death, and I did not care one bit. If they genuinely wanted me to cry, they should have killed one of the main characters. But the train wreck did not stop here. While Musashi was dying, his wish for Zen and I to carry on his duty of patrolling the world to destroy evil wherever it is. You motherfucker, that's a messed up thing for you to do. You just met them and before you die, you throw this huge burden on them? So of course Zen and I leave planet Earth to replace Musashi's role. What choice do they have? Oh, and they only left a goodbye note to the other characters without a proper emotional farewell scene. That's a douchey thing to do. Was that part of the wish? The final arc is fantastic. It's Musashi's over-involvement that was so out of place, and what happened at the very end just left a sour taste in my mouth. I think if he didn't die and Zen and I stayed on Earth, that would have been better. And we see Musashi leaves and gives us this feeling that evil roams in other galaxies, and the story of i-zenborg is just one of them. If they put more emphasis on that, I wouldn't mind, but how the 2 main characters left without saying a real goodbye is so out of character. It's like they were in a hurry. An extra hour to be with your loved ones won't tarnish Musashi's wish, so pump the brakes. It's funny because who will protect Earth now? Epei and Goro? Yeah, right. The story wasn't an elegant, simple, organized 2 or 3 layer cake. Then Musashi came in like a blender and messed everything up. The only good thing about all this is that that's when I knew that a bad ending would not ruin my love or experience with the story. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . On my Lotus review marathon, I said that covering the Lotus series is one of my 5 reasons why I made this channel, and i-zenborg is one of them as well. So 2 out of the 5 main goals is done. I know this was a full-on biased take on this series, and I know objectively there are cringy moments and restock footage, and that's all part of the charm for me. If you are familiar with me, that's how I do things. I talk about my personal experiences, and as much as I can, I want to focus on the positive aspects of my hobbies, and nothing screams positive vibes than i-zenborg to me, along with its flaws that make it feel more organic to me. Born Free was about helping dinosaurs, which is another way of saying to be nice with animals. i-zenborg is about aliens torturing and controlling the dinosaurs, which is another way to bring awareness to animal cruelty. i-zenborg is my most nostalgic show ever, and it is the accumulation of many things that I love, which is a celebration of anime and tokusatsu at the same time, and where I'm from, it is also a celebration of childhood.